Titleist is the number one ball in golf. Yes, being number one is a number, and more players trust the Pro V1 or Pro V1X than all other golf balls combined. But being number one is more than a number. It's a mindset. It's a relentless mission to design and manufacture the best performing golf balls in the game, so you can chase whatever your number one is. Titleist, the number one ball in golf.
Hello and welcome to episode 122 of The Thing About Golf, Golf Australia magazine's continuing quest to uncover the multitude of reasons people get hooked on this game. Rod Murray in the host seat, but in reality just a passenger in this conversation, as John Huggan joins me to introduce this episode. Huggy, welcome. Before we get started, I've got a confession to make. At the end of our last episode with Jane Crafter, I promoted that this episode would be Scotland's own, correct me on the name in a moment, Stephen Gallagher. Is that close?
Very good. Well done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Because, of course, I got my weeks wrong. This week, rightfully, we're not going to hear from Stephen. We're actually going to hear from, drum roll, please, tell the listeners who we're speaking with.
The man who won the last Open Championship at Royal Troon, Henrik Stenson.
Yeah, and, could you be any better? I remember that week, Huggy. We'll come to Stenson specifically in a moment, but I remember that week as one of the great finishes in an Open. You've been to many more than I have and covered them and whatnot. Was it one of the great finishes, Stenson and Mickelson just going ding-dong?
Well, you could make the case, certainly, that it was even better than the famous duel in the sun at Turnberry in 77 between Watson and Nicklaus. Because the golf was just incredible. I mean, and the scoring ridiculous on a golf course that is incredibly difficult. I've always found Royal Troon, certainly the back nine, is just so hard. And these guys, I mean, they were miles better than everybody else. That's the key. I mean, as was Nicklaus and Watson, the guy who finished third was ridiculoly far behind.
Didn't he claim to have won it, Huggy? Didn't the guy who finished third there? You say, I won the Open. I don't know what those two were playing.
Yeah, well, I think at Turnberry, I think it was Hubert Green.
I think you're right.
One under par.
Yeah,
something
Green,
like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Sorry.
And he was miles behind. I mean, and it was the same at Royal Troon. I mean, the golf they played was stupidly good. And I think Mickelson was quoted at the time and has said since again that it's the best he ever played without winning. Yeah. Which is, quite a compliment to Henrik.
We know how good Mickelson is when he's at his best. So if somebody beat him, that tells you how good they must have been playing. Interesting player and character, Stenson. He's got that dry sort of Swedish sense of humour, but he's never really had huge amounts of attention, I don't feel. I imagine you know him reasonably well from his European tour days and when you've been in America and covered him, all that sort of thing. What's he like?
I've always liked him, and I've always gotten on well with him. I hope.
So he's a curmudgeon. He's a fellow curmudgeon.
He's funny. He's got a sense of humour, and you can make fun of Henrik. He's one of the few, which I think I did a couple of times in the podcast, and he can take it because he likes to give it out. But that's not the case with all of these guys. I mean, they like to give it out, but not always like to see some of it coming back. But he's very funny. I'm not sure that comes across in the podcast, but one-on-one, he's always got the little smirk, little grin on his face when he's talking to you, and he likes to make fun of the journalists a little bit. Likes to poke a little bit of fun, which I think is just how it should be.
When we're not on air, Huggy, you and I ourselves poke fun at the other journalists as well. So nice to be on the other end of that too.
That is certainly true, yes.
Yes, indeed. Did you enjoy this chat with him? What's your take on him now? Of course, famously went to live, lost the Ryder Cup captaincy. There was bad things happened for Henrik Stenson around that time.
Yeah, well, I would hope he's not going to be defined by that. I mean, I suspect that might be in the first paragraph of his,
sadly,
writing the story of Henrik Stenson, because his career, you touched on it a little bit there. I mean, he was incredibly good. I mean, he won the FedEx Cup, he won the race to Dubai, he's won these Open, he's won, the Players. I mean, if you actually delve into his career a little bit, I mean, he's achieved incredible things. And he was the first male Swede, of course, to win a major, which was an emotional thing for him and for the nation, I suspect. I mean, they've had all these women who've come along, Annika being the most notable, and won multiple majors, but they'd never had a man win a major until Henrik did it, and they haven't had one since, of course. But so he should be something of a national hero. I suspect he's lost some of that, sadly, because of the live thing. But here's the thing: we touched on this in the podcast. That it's all about timing. I mean, had Henrik come along, had it been, the softening of views towards live that is underway at the moment, had Henrik done what he did now, he might not have lost the captaincy. It's all very different, and it's going to get more different, I think, as the negotiations drag to a close.
Yeah.
So I think he was unfortunate in the timing. I mean, he must have known what was going to happen, because at the time it was very much us and them as far as live is concerned. But times are changing, and you never know. He might get it back again in the future. Yeah. Nothing's impossible.
No, phenomenal phisical golfer, Huggy, intimidating. Just really mashed at the ball with every club. An exciting player to watch.
Yeah, and the thing about him is, and we touched on this in the podcast, is that he's gone through at least one incredible slump. I mean, I did a story on him years ago, detailing what he went through. I mean, he walked off, I think, in a tournament at the K Club in Ireland. He walked off because he just hit two drives that were something like 200 yards apart, sideways.
Wow.
I mean, he just couldn't hit the ball. He couldn't keep the ball in the world, and basically had driving yips, I think. But he managed to get through that, which is no easy task, and come back, to play at the level he did. Yeah. There's a bit of steel there amongst the little grins and smirks of Henrik Stenson. He's a man to be admired in many ways.
Yeah. Of course, he went to that 3-wood, which he used to hit as far as most players hit their driver for many years, didn't he? It was famous. It was all banged up and scratched. You could tell he was never going to let go of it. So,
and I'm not sure driving is ever going to be a strength of his, but he manages to. He's certainly long enough with that 3-wood to get away with it.
Yeah, no doubt. Enough out of us, Huggy. Let's get to our guest. I'm going to admit I haven't listened to this one, not because I'm lazy, which is normally the reason, but because I've actually been saving up as a treat for this week. So I'm going to do the edit this afternoon and enjoy it as I go. Thanks for
I hope you enjoy
us.
it. Okay, welcome to the latest edition of the Thing About Golf podcast. My guest this time around is, I hate to say this in front of him, but he's one of my favourite people to talk to in golf. Henrik Stenson, former Open champion. What was and is the thing about golf for you?
Yeah, that's... thanks for having me, first of all. And that's... I don't know, is there a simple answer to that question? I mean... my first contact with the game was really when I was 11, joined a friend, went out to the local golf course, and I guess I just hit one straight out of the center of the bat. From what I can recall, that felt pretty darn good. And I came back asking for more, and here we are. I don't know, what would that be, 37 years later, and I'm still enjoying hitting it out of the center of the club face.
Yeah. Now I know you're left-handed, so were you forced to play right-handed clubs because there wasn't left-handed clubs there, or how did that evolve?
No, so when I was a boy and growing up in Sweden, we played a lot of street hockey. So we would get the hockey sticks, tennis balls. We would build our own goals, and we would run around and shooting like slap shots. And me being left-handed. Left hand on top of the stick, right side was more for power, and I was shooting hockey the same way as I'm playing golf. So it all kind of matched up in that sense. So when I first picked up a golf club, I was swinging it the same way as I've been shooting hockey shots. So it all became very natural in that sense, and it was never something I had to think about.
Yeah, I'm interested in the culture of golf in Sweden. I mean, you were far from the first to come along. There was a kind of generation ahead of you in terms of playing the tour and the rest of it. But what kind of did your friends look at you a bit strangely? As Henrik's into golf. What's golf? Where did golf place in the? I mean, football, hockey, that kind of thing was always bigger in Sweden, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you're right. Certainly. Back at that time, football and ice hockey were the two main sports, and I was no different. I played football as well, and eventually came a time when I kind of gave up that. I didn't want to leave the golf course to go to the football practices. I was about 15 at that time, but it was still, golf was still quite common, and pretty popular, I'd say, when I started, but it was really a few years later when we had that real like golfing boom in Sweden, and more courses were being built, and more people started playing. It's a country with about 10 million population. We got roughly 600 golf courses and 450,000 people, I think, that has golf clubs and plays in some shape or form. So it's a very spread out sport, and something that's being played and enjoyed by many people. So it's not like it's a very uncommon thing to play golf in Sweden, and it wasn't back then either, even though it's kind of developed and it's more popular now than it used to be. But it was a little different, I guess, and where I came from, no one in my family had ever played and held a golf club before I picked one up. So it's slightly different kind of way into the game than most, I'd say.
When did it become clear to you that, and I ask this question a lot on this podcast, when did it become clear to you that you were good at it? You had some talent, and you were going to be, this is what you kind of wanted to do.
I think when I was about 15, I wasn't one to, the first couple of years, I went straight down to 18 the first year I played, and then I started playing off the ladies' tees because I was under 12, and then I started the next season at 22, I think, from the men's tee, went down to 9 and then to 5. So 3 seasons into it, I was down to 5 handicap, and then I was quite short at the time. I didn't have my growth spurt until a bit later, so I didn't hit the ball very far. I had to rely on short game, and I got stuck on 5 handicap for a year or two, and then it was around that time when I was about 15, 16. I'd given up playing football, and golf was my sole focus in sports. And I think I showed signs early, but I was never the wonder kid. Always been kind of working hard and making steady progress over time. I think that's kind of been my signature in terms of development.
Now, where you come from, I mean, similar to, I grew up in Scotland, and it gets dark there in the winter, and I know it's the same in Sweden. I mean, it's a pretty short season. How did that affect your progress, or was Sweden the best place to be at that time?
Yeah, you can wonder that, but I think I think when you're a junior, when you're a kid, I think playing multiple sports is always going to be good for your athletic development and skill set. I played badminton in the winter time, so we kind of kept ourselves busy with that. I played a sport that's called bandy. I don't think too many people may be familiar with that. It's pretty much like field hockey on ice. So even though I'm not a great skater, I wouldn't say I can get around on a pair of skates as well. So I played other sports, and I think as well as keeping up indoor practice, and you find a way to putt on a carpet somewhere at home, and we had once or twice a week we had golf practice with the juniors at my home club, and we would be hitting golf balls into nets and so on. But I think you just really long for the golf season. It is a bit shorter than maybe other parts of the world, but you really look forward to it, and when that spring sunshine starts shining again, then you're kind of really ready to go and really looking forward to the season ahead. So I think it's at an early age, I don't think it's a big thing not having the access all year round, but of course at some point it's going to be beneficial to be able to practice with quality facilities or conditions a bit more than we can do in Northern Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I've just pointed out the disadvantage of growing up in Sweden, but having said that, I mean, just the proliferation of really good players, both men and women from Sweden, tells me that there was something being done right there. And you were obviously part of that. You made your way through the boys' youths, playing for Sweden as an amateur before you turned pro. Talk us briefly through that system, if you like, and why that was so good.
Yeah, I think golf as it is in Britain, I'd say it's very accessible. You got, of course, you have some bigger clubs, bigger venues, but you also got these small clubs nearby where you can become a member at a pretty reasonable cost, and picking up a used set of golf clubs is not going to be too crazy either. So I think just having the access has been key in Sweden, and as in other parts of the world that produces players. That was really how a lot of us got started. And then you got people at the club that are interested in helping out with the juniors. I know times have changed. Everyone got more on their plates and living busier lives maybe than we did 40 years ago. But it was always, practice. It was always club tournaments for the juniors and so forth. And then once you stepped up, the federations always kind of had that ladder where you can then play at the next level. And when you become good enough to compete on the national level, then the kind of national team coaches would keep their eyes on you and bring you up into that part of the ladder as well. So there's always been kind of the next step from club level, regional and national, and onwards into the national team. So there's always been a steady stream of producing talent that way, I think.
Yeah. I remember this a few years ago. Now you may or may not remember this. I went to Golf Digest magazine, sent me to Malmo to do a feature on yourself, and I was at Barsebäck, went speaking to Christian Harding, the pro there. I don't know if he's still there or not, and waiting for you to arrive. And this huge bus appeared, and out came about 50 kids. I was that really impressed me. That he said, well, it's almost every day that was happening. I mean, that wasn't something that you saw every day in Scotland or in the UK. I mean, obviously, if you get that number of kids playing that early, one or two of them are going to turn out to be good. I was very impressed by that. I was also, I need to mention this before I forget, that the honours board at Barsebäck was interesting to me because your wife was on there far more often than you were. So I thought that was quite amusing.
We both had our names up as club champions a few times. That's right. I think the accessibility to be able to get in contact with the sport, with the game, and being able to enjoy it at an early age if you want to. Of course, that's going to be kind of the lead into to bigger and better things down the road. So we've had that kind of system in place for a very long time, and it surely paid its dividends over time.
Any theories on why the women produced truly great players far quicker than the men did?
No, I mean, I think we've produced a high number of very good women players. Then has that been that Sweden's kind of been one of the superpowers in the game, and there might have been a few I wouldn't say less countries maybe, but just in terms of the competition, we've been very well positioned on the women's side. I mean, we had some great years on the number of players we had on the European tour back in the day. I think we had a record number when we had 22 or 24 males playing on the European tour and during one season. That's obviously not quite been the same since, but no, they just I think the girls might be more kind of needing the social aspect. It's very important for the young girls at 14, 15, 16 years old that they have friends and other girls to play and practice with and hang out. And I think just on the sheer number of girls that's played in Sweden, that's kind of been a very good kind of climate for them to develop and have fun together and practice together and become good together. So I don't know if that might have been one reason to it as well.
Well, I mean, generally speaking as well, women are supposed to mature quicker than men do. So maybe that's just part of it as well. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm still hoping for you and me that one day we will mature, but
yeah, I'm looking to grow up sometime soon. Yeah, exactly. Right, before we leave your amateur career and move into the pro, what were the highlights when you look back on your amateur stint playing for Sweden?
It was the big tournaments, the European individual and teams. At a fairly early age, then get to be a part of a team, and we played the boys team championship. We played that at Vila Moura in Portugal. The year I was 18 in '94. It was actually the year that Sweden finished third in the World Cup. Our second best finish ever. So I guess I should dwell on those memories now that we're not even in the Euros.
Scotland is, but only barely.
Yeah, but it was fun times, traveling and playing with the team, and we had some good success and fun memories looking back at that. I didn't really manage to win much in terms of my amateur career. I won the Italian match play. I beat Robert John Dirksen in a 36-hole final at outside of Milan at Villa d'Este, and also I think the Greek amateur or something I managed to win. So it was like I didn't really have any real big wins as an amateur, being part of some teams and so on.
Yeah. Well, I actually found, looking back, I found your name in the R&A record book for the 1997 amateur at Royal St George's in Cinque Ports. Would you like to talk us through your birdies and bogeys from the 85 you shot in the first round? Is that okay?
I think the birdies should be pretty quickly spoken about. There couldn't have been many. Let's just hope that it was very windy.
I'm assuming it would be. I think the scoring was very high. You weren't alone in that. So anyway, moving right along. You're turning pro. Where did you go first? What was the sort of decision-making process on where you were? Your kind of targets for the first. The first five. Everybody has a kind of 5-year plan. What was yours?
Yeah, I think I stayed back actually, and I wanted to play the World Amateur, the Eisenhower Trophy, and I had a close friend of mine on the team. He decided to go pro a year earlier, but I hung back and played that in '98, made the team. We played in Santiago de Chile, and that was kind of the end of my amateur career. And immediately after, a few of us went to Argentina. So I teed up. My first pro event was I think December '98 in Buenos Aires at a small course inside the city. And I think I managed to walk away with $907 in cash payout on the Sunday, and that felt pretty good.
Yeah.
Even though it probably didn't cover the flight tickets, but so I played a couple of tournaments on the South American tour, and then from '99 onwards started playing on the Swedish circuit, which back then had some challenge tour events, and I think my plan ahead was to make it onto the challenge tour and then eventually make it onto the European tour over the next couple of years, and managed to make that transition pretty quickly over the next year and a half.
Yeah, I know you won quite early on your European tour career, I know, but that was just, I remember writing this feature and talking to you years ago about it can only be described as a slump. You kind of lost it for a period of time. What was that like? And how hard was it to come back from something like that? I remember writing, you were telling me about missing fairways by 70 yards and things. It was frightening stuff to listen to, especially for somebody who's playing at your level. How bad was that, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, and I would like to say though that in terms of golf game, it's better to have had it and lost it than to never have had it, like in your case, right? No,
yeah, well, that's very true.
No, I know you were a good player. Yeah, I managed to win the Challenge Tour in 2000, and got off to a hot start in the early part of 2001, and then towards the summer. It's always hard to kind of pinpoint and know what it was that started it, but I started hitting the ball really wide off the tee, and eventually led to like driver yips with me spraying the ball, everywhere. So I've tried to explain to someone, I don't think it's not just going to be technical. It's not just going to be certainly mentally, because if you're piping it 290 yards down the center line, then you're not going to stop worrying about out of bounds and trees. So it's it's a combination of the two, I think, and it's the same when you're going to solve something like that. You need to both address both your technique and your kind of mind at the same time. And it was some tough times. I started working with Pete Cowan at the time. At the end of 2001, my caddy at the time, Grant Berry, introduced us, and we started like a really long journey together, and to try and rebuild the swing, basically. And it was 2002 was a horrific year. I missed a very high percentage of cuts and didn't have any good tournaments, and it wasn't until the end of 2003 really that I managed to pull some results together with really, I had my back up against the wall not to lose my tour card, and managed to pull something out of the hats and kind of wrap up the season with a good finish at Dunley Links, and kept my tour card, and that was really me kind of coming out of that 2-year slump near enough.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody about that. I was going to be doing this podcast with you just the other day, and they were saying, well, you'll be talking to Henrik about, winning the Open at Troon, which we will obviously talk about. And they were saying, well, that must be the greatest, moment in his career, or the greatest feat in his career. And I said, well, it might be, but it might also be coming back from where you were back, 20 odd years ago. Because as I say, I wrote that story, and I remember thinking, bloody hell, this is a long way gone for somebody that your level to come back from.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's. I'm willing to agree. I mean, of course, when you stand there with the Claret Jug, you're going to look at that as your biggest achievement. But I mean, in terms of golfing language, I really came back from the dead. It was I was down and out, and we've seen quite a lot of other players and people in other walks of life or sport that when you end up in that in that big of a hole with your game and emotions, it is really tough to come back from, and a lot have not been heard from since they ended up in that spot. So yeah, it is something I'm very proud of to manage to pull myself out of there, and of course with a great team and a lot of hard work, managed to get my game back in shape, and then really had some really. I think over the course of my career, I've probably had some really high highs and some pretty low lows. So it's not been a straight line. That's for sure. So we take big pride in coming back from that time.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, there must have been moments of very dark moments, as you say, and almost panic. I would think that there wasn't any way back from that. I mean, it was because it was. I mean, it's hard to underestimate just how bad it was.
Yeah, it was bad, and I think I think there were two things. One, I think I still managed to distance myself, to a degree on how bad it could feel on the golf course and how bad it could feel around golf, and still kind of feeling somewhat good when you're away from golf, and manage to leave that to one side and enjoy life and your friends and family and everything else. And me pretty well. It's never that far away from a good laugh, So I think I think that kind of helped. That frame of mind certainly helped. If you totally connected with your work or with your sport, and the sport is really down, then it's very easy for you to get completely down as well. And the second thing is just refusing to give up, to quit. It's like, I think if you're forced to kind of give up on such a bad note, I think it's going to be there nagging you for forever and ever afterwards. And I wouldn't want to have that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a mistake to rate your self-worth as a human being on, the number on a scorecard, isn't it? I mean, that's just mistake number one you can make in your profession, I would think.
Yeah, and it's very easy to do that. We know that, and a lot of people do. And of course, your performances are going to be hugely important, but also you got to be able to separate the two. I think to not live the most stressful life.
Okay, on the other side of that coin, I mentioned Troon there briefly. I mean, and I don't want to skip over all the other career highlights. I mean, my goodness, you've been number one on both sides of the Atlantic and won, the players and huge events everywhere. But the Troon Open of 2016 inevitably sticks out, not just because you won the Open, but because of the way you won the Open. I did, the only slight, this is not a negative, but I did wonder, in post Troon or right after Troon, did it cross your mind that man, that's as good as it's ever going to get? I can't imagine it ever getting any better than that. And there might have been a slight feeling of, well, what do I do from here? How does it get any better?
Yeah, I think you're right with that. I think it goes for anyone that's been in the sport as much as we have been, and you got goals and achievements you want to try and reach, and then you kind of pretty much get that perfect week in terms of, like you say, I would have been, of course, very, very happy and grateful if I would have shot 71 on that Sunday and won the Open Championship and get a Claret Jug. But it was kind of the icing on the cake, of course, to manage to take Phil down in that battle and post some records and then play, arguably the best I've ever played on the biggest of stages when you need it the most. So I think it goes for a lot of athletes. They work hard. They got the Olympics coming up, and they come home successful with a couple of gold medals around their neck. You're gonna be, where do I go from here? And winning a major was kind of the last box for me to tick. I'd been, like you say, very lucky to be as successful and having won some great tournaments all around the world, and FedEx Cup and Race to Dubai and everything else. But there was still kind of one thing missing, and I hadn't had a huge number of chances, but I'd been up in contention a few times, and if things would have gone my way, I might have had the major already. But it all came down to Troon in 2016, and it was. I'm sure there was a bit of a, let's say, hangover after that. Even though I was kind of still straight into the PGA Championship and then the Olympics and so on, and we rounded off the season with winning Race to Dubai for a second time. So it wasn't like it went completely flat afterwards. But I'd probably more looking into 2017 and beyond. There might have been a bit of a times where it was a bit like where do we go from here type deal.
I mean, this is, I don't know how easy or hard this is going to be to answer, but what was it like at Troon? I mean, in the midst of that, you're probably not thinking about it while you were doing it, but afterwards, you must have looked back and think, my God, it was just, how do I get back to that state of mind, or, whatever it was? I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, the state of mind, certainly on the back nine and the last 18, it was in the zone. You talk a lot about that in terms of being in that frame of mind for the ultimate performance and so on. And the one thing, when I sat down in scoring straight after and I look up and I see the scorecard on the TV screen, and I see 4 red circles on the last 5 holes, and I hadn't even reflected on me birding 4 out of the last 5 holes to close out the tournament. So I think that was the ultimate receipt on where my mind was, that I was totally here and now and in that, in the zone. and of course we'd been in the zone. I'm sure a couple of times before, but it was really like we were where you perform the best, and all your focus and energy is just on the shot at hand, and that's again comes back to that old cliche: the easiest thing and the hardest thing is just one shot at a time, and that's where you got to push yourself if you want to perform at your highest level, and we managed to do that.
Part of it, I'm imagining too, would be just the performance of the other guy as well. I mean, he brought that out in you, and you brought that out in him. I mean, I know that. I mean, I've talked to him since then, and he's still bemused by the fact he's never played that well and didn't win, and probably hasn't since. That's the biggest compliment almost you can be paid. But I mean, his performance has to be part of yours as well, and vice versa, I would have thought.
Absolutely, no question about it. There's no way I would have managed to reach 20 under par for the championship if Phil wouldn't have been there pushing me. And it was like a boxing match that lasted. We were just trading blows all the way around, and Phil almost holed out for eagle on the first, and I ended up making a bogey from long range, and then I birdied second and third, and then birdied fourth while he eagled the fourth, and it was just back and forth the whole way around. So no question that we were feeding off each other, and that's I think what's make a victory like Tiger had at Pebble Beach when he left everybody else behind on his own, because it's very easy. I think if you open up a big lead like that and just put yourself in cruise control and just finish it off. But you know, I think when you're being pushed, you obviously it's only forward, and we were playing phenomenal golf, and like you say, 99 times out of 100, Phil would have won with that scoring and that game that he brought. But luckily for me, I managed to just edge ahead and bring even better game that day.
What were the best shots? I know you must have had time to look back on it now. What were the best moments or best shots in the midst of all that? I mean, there weren't many bad ones.
No, I mean, I recall it was really. I mean, I putted phenomenally well that last round, and I made a really good putt for birdie on 10 when Phil was in close, and then I stood over this. I think it was about 20 feet on 14, and we're level. And I just recall thinking to myself, like, he's not going to go away. He's not going to give you anything. So if you want to win this championship, you gotta take opportunities like this one. And I had a really solid putt and drilled that in the middle on 14 to go one ahead. And I had a 50 footer off the edge on 15, and that was really the big blow to Phil, I guess, when I managed to hold that one and you know, to bring those putts out when I needed it the most. That was crucial. But probably the best shot was the 4-iron on 17. I'm 2 ahead. 17 is a tough par 3, and I just hit an absolute lasered 4-iron at the pin. And if you're watching it, I hit it, and as soon as I look up, I know it's good, and I just like pick up my. I don't even know if I had a tee peg. I normally don't, but I just like looked away and walk over to Garrett with the club, and commentators were a little confused. They think that I've hit a bad one almost because I'm so quickly looking away. And I mean that 4-iron almost lands in the hole, and it could have been all done and dusted there. I missed from about 8 feet, and Phil makes a par putt from 12 or 15 feet, and it was still going up the last with two ahead. But it could have all been. It could have been an easy ride up the last if I make mine or he misses his par putt. But with 2 ahead, you still got to keep your foot on the gas and finish the job on 18, which we managed to do.
You mentioned Gareth Lord there, and he's back caddying for you now. But how important was he in the midst of all that? I mean, was there moments where he said the right thing, did the right thing, that kind of stuff?
I think.
Or did he have to say anything at that point?
Yeah, I mean, we'd worked together, I think, 4 or 5 years at that time, 4 years. And you just create this working relationship, and you kind of, we both know what we need to do. And I think just stick into your routines and your game plan and all that, and not go away from that, even though you're in the middle of kind of in the heat of the moment. You still, so having someone on your side that you trust and that's really focused on what needs to be focused on during those times is important. And of course I've had that with Gareth. We've had some great success together, and just knowing that you have somebody by your side that you feel comfortable with and that can deliver when the heat is on, that's important, and I have that in him. So we did 6 years together. We had a couple of years apart, and now we've been back again for, what is it, like 3 years, something like that. So he's been a huge part in my success over these years. Yeah.
Your golf ball is the most technologically advanced, or it's not. Your golf ball is either the most consistent, or it's not. It's the most trusted, or it's not. The fact is, it's either Titleist, the best performing golf ball in the world, or it's not. Prove it for yourself. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. What will you play?
Yeah. In the wake of it, I did wonder, what this would mean in Sweden. And it was brought home to me how much it did mean when I met, a very good friend of yours and a good friend of mine who's no longer with us, Goran Zachrisson, the TV commentator on Swedish TV at the time. And when I saw him the first time after, he could barely speak. That's how emotional he was. And I just wondered what sort of reaction it got generally, not just in him, but back home in Sweden. I mean, you were the first male golfer to win a major from Sweden.
Yeah, it was a big moment, of course. The guys that that I kind of played with in my early days on tour, and kind of the generation before me, Jesper Parnevik in particular, had some really good chances that he did not win at Turnberry. If you go back and watching Turnberry finish in '94, I still believe he's going to win with one hole to go. And then at a crazy turn of events, Nick Price holds a 60-footer for eagle on 17, and Jesper slips on the last to make a bogey, and all of a sudden it didn't happen. So there were some great chances before, and I think if I'm not mistaken, Jesper was around the lead or tied for the lead or something at Troon in '97 maybe as well.
97 when Justin Leonard won.
Yeah, so Jesper in particular had some great opportunities, and I guess it was a matter of time, but it took a bit longer than the golfing nation would have liked to, and in the end, I'm just very pleased to manage to accomplish that, and it was a big win. Got a lot of attention, of course, and which is great for golf and golf in Sweden, and it's just a big honor to be able to make it happen.
And you'll always be the first.
Yeah, first Swede, first Scandinavian. I texted Ludwig after his very impressive debut at Augusta, coming up second. Augusta is a tricky golf course, and to be runner-up and challenged for a green jacket your first time around, that just shows the talent that Ludwig got. And again, now being in the lead after two days at the US Open. So I texted him, I said, well done on that very impressive first go at Augusta. I said, you probably have 80 chances to win a major or more. So, patience and it'd be interesting to see him over the next couple of years, and he's obviously the next one that you feel is really lined up to take that big step.
Yeah. You must be looking forward to going back to Troon, I'm imagining. And how often have you been back since then?
Yeah, I haven't been back a whole lot. I was back in summer of 22. We opened the new kind of par 3 course, or junior course, had an opening there, and they were kind enough to present me with honorary membership. So, once my kind of active playing career winds down a little bit here in whenever that is. I hope to be able to go back a little bit more and enjoy some rounds with friends and family. But I've been back a couple of times. We played Scottish Open at Dundonald. I was in town then, but didn't play. So I've only really played, I think, one 18-hole round in the summer of 22. That's the only 18 holes I've played since the win. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I've been there a lot, but really looking forward to coming back. And I think it's always going to be special when you're kind of I'm not the defending champion, obviously, but I'm the kind of defending champion from the venue last time around. And yeah, looking forward to coming back and seeing both local people and the fans, of course, at the Open, which are always great.
Was there something about the course that particularly suited you, or that you liked? It's not really anybody's favourite, to be honest.
Well, it's one of my favorites.
Well, it is now, yeah.
No, I think what really made a big difference for me, the back nine is quite hard. I've always fared well on tougher golf courses, and it's hard not to say that the back nine at Troon is one of the tougher ones. So on the front nine, you normally have the wind kind of helping you a little bit down off the right, I'd say most of the times, and it's a lot of positional play as it can be on links courses with irons off the tee for the most part, and then you got to set up some birdie chances. But coming home, it's asking a lot more of you, both off the tee and into the green. So I think that's what really suits my game and made a difference that week. I think I was 10 under on the front nine and 10 under on the back nine for the championship, and I'm sure 10 under on the front could have been matched by a few, but the 10 under on the back was really what separated myself in that case, I think.
Yeah. The back nine can be brutal at Troon when it gets a bit windy. Having made fun of you for your 85 and the 97 amateur, I should also tell you about the 1980 British Youths Championship in which I played in at Royal Troon. The numbers will be, why I can remember this so well will become apparent. I shot 85 to miss the cut. However, my this will tell you what direction the wind was in. My halves were 37-48, 38-47. So the back nine was playing a little bit difficult that week. So.
Yeah. Oh, I have to say, welcome to the club then of shooting 85 in an R&A championship then.
Correct. Well, moving on, jumping around a little bit here, but I need to talk to you about the Ryder Cup. You've distinguished yourself many times in that fantastic event. What are your, just let's start with your best memories of all those appearances and victories, mostly.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't have asked for a better debut in terms of being part of that K Club team in 2006. Yeah, a dream, of course, as a golfer, a young golfer, to one day be part of a Ryder Cup team and managed to qualify for the 06 team. And we had a super strong team. I think the Americans they had a team that was probably one of their weakest ones, if not the weakest one on paper, at least.
Yeah. And some of those guys didn't have passports, Henrik, for goodness sake.
But yeah, there's never any guarantees anyway. But the team that we had playing on home soil, we took a very convincing win, and of course that was a great week to be part of in 06. Then playing in 08. Equally, kind of got beaten in Valhalla in America, and then I took a bit of a break there. I didn't have my best year, so I didn't play in 10, 12, and managed to get back on the team for Glen Eagles, which was another highlight of the Ryder Cup career and of my career. Had a fantastic partnership with Justin Rose, and we played some great matches there, and then moved on for another defeat in Hazeltine, and then turned it around again, being part of the winning team at National. So it's hard to pick out one that stands out, but National, and the first is always going to be the first, like you said. But Glen Eagles and National were obviously two highlights.
You're being modest. I mean, there was some debate at the time as to whether you'd actually hold the winning putt at the K Club or not because of the timing of it. But I think it was proven afterwards that you did. Just a little bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, but on the same, I mean, there's been other winning putts that meant a lot more. That one is more you get a mentioning maybe, but we would have won even if I would have gone in for a hot chocolate in the clubhouse. We would have won without my match. But obviously it was nice to win the match and the kind of securing it for sure. But the weeks with the team and with the fans, memories for sure of that will last your whole career.
You mentioned 08. I'm always impressed, I think is the right word, for players who played in that team, that nobody has ever really taken the opportunity to throw the captain under the bus, despite his, I should have got the adjective to describe what Nick Faldo's captaincy was like that week, but you've done well to keep your mouth shut, shall we say.
Yeah, I guess there's been other times when the captain's being thrown under the bus instead, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you thinking about anything in particular?
Well, as you bring that up, I mean, I've got to ask you about it. I mean, what was your thought process? I think people would like to hear, or understand where you were and where you ended up with the Ryder Cup captaincy. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you know, it's been pretty we say turmoil times in the world of golf over the last 2.5 years. Hopefully, there can be some kind of resolutions or more stability going forward, and I think it's kind of heading that way. But when it becomes politics and power and money and everything else kind of involved, it's always gonna turn a bit ugly at times. And I think this time around in our sport it was no different. Without going into too much details, obviously there's been a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and on my end, unfortunately, the kind of captaincy and the Ryder Cup ended up and still is kind of ending up in that kind of political fight, if you'd like. It's still not resolved, and going forward we'll see what happens. But there were certain things that got decided on kind of on my end and on the counterpart, that led to me being removed as a captain, and that was obviously me going to live. Even though we can argue for a long time whether, I mean, I can only go off of my side that I feel like I could have upheld my end of the captaincy, despite playing some of my golf on live. But the counterpart didn't want that, and in the end, that was the end of it.
With the benefit of some hindsight, I think it's fair to say that your timing was awful, in that had it all been happening now, I mean, the European Tour have made it quite clear that John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton, to name two live players, are going to be able to play in the Ryder Cup or be eligible to play in the Ryder Cup next year. Had it all been happening now, you might have survived as captain. The times are changing, as they say, and the softening of the attitude towards live by the world in general, had it been in place when the time you were going through all that, it might have been different. Who knows? Yeah,
who knows? And we'll still to see what comes out of it. I mean, it's still like you say with John and Tyrrell and so on. That, I mean, there's still technicalities. Yes, you can keep your membership. They can keep their membership, but they still being fined and still being penalized for playing on live. So it's almost like you're patting with one hand and you're smacking with the other. It's a bit of a weird situation, and I think at some point this needs to be resolved. And at this point, I don't think necessarily it's the players that can resolve this. It's down to the management to figure out what they want and how to make it work, because it's kind of a unmanageable situation in my mind going forward. And I think you also got to treat everyone kind of the same. What's the difference then this year compared to last year? And I mean, all the guys who resigned the memberships were virtually forced out. Obviously, we're being fined every time you're playing elsewhere. So it's there's still some things to be ironed out, and hopefully that can happen in the near future.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a factor, the quality of player we're talking about in with John Ram and Tyrrell. I mean, I think I don't know whether you would agree with this, but when I look at the Ryder Cup, where Europe are obviously, they've done incredibly well, but they don't have the depth of squad yet that the Americans have. I mean, the Europeans almost have to have something that is very, very close to their best team, if not their best team, to be competitive at that level. Whereas the Americans, they've got like a team and a half or maybe a team and three quarters that could play at that level. So that, to me, is certainly my slightly cynical view of the Ram Hatton thing, is that Europe needs those guys to be able to have a chance of winning next year, and that's a big part in where we're headed with this. But basically, my question on the final question on that would be, what would be your hope for at the end of all this, when all the talking's done? Where are we? Where would you like us to be in terms of the professional game?
Well, I think my hopes would be that the players obviously can play where they want, and where they have kind of earned the categories and the right to play, as long as you fulfill the membership requirements. I mean, if I were to be offered to join on, I don't even know if I would still have a category on the PGA Tour, but if I were to be asked or have the option to join back on the PGA Tour tomorrow, I wouldn't do it, because I'm playing 14 tournaments on live. I can't fulfill another 15 on the PGA Tour, so that wouldn't be of interest or be an option for me, but it might be for somebody else that's 23 and maybe want to play 30 tournaments in a calendar year. And the same goes for the DP World Tour, that the
requirements are not that you could do that, couldn't you? I mean, you could play the Live and the European Tour and fulfill the membership requirements.
Absolutely, and I think that was the intentions for all of the guys, more or less, who went to Live. There was more of a trade between the PGA Tour and Live. It was never really going to affect the support of the European side of things in terms of Ryder Cup and DP World Tour, but because DP World Tour obviously chose to line up underneath the PGA Tour, that's kind of where it goes back to what I said. It's all a game about power and money and the kind of the politics around that, and that's obviously where we're still sitting in 2.5-3 years down the line. So my hopes are that this could be resolved in one way or the other, and players can play on tours and in tournaments that they have the option to do, and we can leave all these other things behind one day.
Yeah, how much can you tell us about your decision-making process when you did join Live? I mean, where were you that, and what were the determining factors in that? I
mean, in terms of
obviously money's part of it. I mean, it'd be silly not to argue that it was.
Yeah. Money is always going to be part of it. And that's why did we join the PGA Tour? It wasn't because we like to be on 10-hour flights, 10 more times in a year. It was because it's more bigger purses, more ranking points, bigger events and everything else, and of course that was one part of Live as well, when you got guaranteed price checks and prize funds at a really huge level. That's going to play a part, and it's played part in where we've gone over the course of our careers. I'm not saying that money is the deciding factor in everything, but it certainly plays a part. It does where people choose to work, and if you work for BMW and Mercedes is offering you double the pay or 50% more and 5 more weeks of holiday, a lot of people are going to look at it, and I can see myself switching companies, but apparently it wasn't okay for us to look at a different tour or different tournaments. But without going into that too much, I think in terms of my age, being able to play a more limited schedule is obviously something. Having played 2 tours for near enough 20 years with all the travel and everything, and not really having an off season, having a longer break between the seasons was something I was always keen on, to be able to be home with the kids and just enjoying life away from tour a little bit at the age of 46, 48. That has a higher value than when you're 25 or 30, no question. And I knew I was going to get that being part of Live as well. And then there's a lot of great golf tournaments around the world, and I've enjoyed them, over 20 years of playing them. But also something that's a little bit new and kind of fresh is always going to be something that will get your interest as well. So it's a combination of things really, and that's why it led down to me joining. And I even though I'm sure there might be the odd person listening to things like he regrets that, I honestly I don't. I wish that certain things could have played out differently around it, but I was 100% secure in my decision once I took it, and I haven't looked back in that sense since.
Is there anything you miss?
There's some people I miss. I haven't been able to see you as much.
Well, that must be devastating, obviously. But, yeah.
No, but there's colleagues, there's people that work at the events, around the events, with the tour. Of course, there's people that you've grown up with kind of in your professional career and spend a lot of time with traveling and so on over a long period of time. And of course, I don't get to see them as much or frequent. And then there's been the odd relationship here and there that's kind of turned in a different direction. But I think I said that in Abu Dhabi at the beginning of last year. If you're having people around you that can't accept that you've chosen a different career path or chosen to play some other golf tournaments, if that's enough not to have the same relationship any longer, I'm fine with that. I got a pretty extensive phone book on my phone, and it's sometimes it could be good to cross a few out if that has to be done. So I'm in a very, very happy place myself, golfing wise. Yeah, I can play better. I got things that I work on there to try and perform better, but where I'm at with my life and family and how my calendar looks, I'm in a very good place.
Yeah, I'm reminded, when you listening to what you've just said, I'm reminded of my friend Derek Lawrenson, who used to be the golf correspondent of the Daily Mail, who you'll remember, I'm sure. I saw him at the Open last year. He showed up for the golf writers' dinner, and I asked him how he was enjoying retirement, and he said, "Well, he says I'm missing some of the inmates, but I'm not missing the asylum," which is probably a good way of putting it. Yeah. So. Yeah.
No, absolutely, and ultimately, I think it's been in these kind of turbulent times. We haven't really had that in golf, and at this point, we all kind of ended up in the middle in the middle of that storm, and it's had its challenges, but I'm sure we're all going to come out the other end, and in terms of where it's put players and a lot of people involved with the game, it's obviously pushed progress, and things have happened as a consequence of this competition and the new kind of world order in golf. So I just wish for things to kind of calm down and end up in a slightly better place than we've been, and we should be good going forward.
Well, I would share that. Obviously, I think we all hope that it's going to turn out for the best. But there's been a lot of stories been written recently over. They need to get on with it, Henrik. This is taking too long, and I don't think it's done anything for the wider image of golf. I mean, it's been very easy for people to portray the top players, especially as in this only for the money, and they're not really thinking about what's best for the game as a whole, or the industry, if you like. How would you react to that? And is there some truth to that? Some damage has been done, I think.
Yeah, I think there's been some damage. I mean, ultimately, you're never going to have the regular golf fan taking an interest in multimillionaires fighting over money. I mean, I fully understand that part, but also you got to look wider and say it's not the players who are the ones deciding this. It's really the people who are running the tours. I mean, the one that I would be the most disappointed in is someone who wouldn't take a meeting before all this happened for a very long time and refusing to come to the table and sit down. And I think a lot of this could have been avoided if there would have been a different approach from some of the people at the helm before Live kind of got launched, and we would have been in a better place from the beginning. They're saying that you can't have the cake and eat it at the same time. I really do think that we could have had that way. We could have played the kind of regular season, and then Live could have been played on kind of on the later part of the season around the world as it is kind of now, but a slightly shorter season. And there's many different ways this could have panned out earlier, but it didn't. And I think instead of looking down the path of what the players have signed up for and what we have, the decisions we've taken, I think there's a lot of it to be said for the people who are in control of the different tours and what they could have done to make this turn out a lot better.
What surprised me at the beginning of it all was the PGA Tour and Jay Monahan in particular. They went down the route of making this a moral argument. I mean, based on some of the stuff that goes on in Saudi Arabia, which no right-thinking person could possibly approve of. However, the business world across the spectrum. I mean, I've been to Saudi Arabia, as you have, and the place. I remember the place I was staying at. I thought, well, I'll just have a wee walk at the hotel, and there was Burger King and all these other multinational companies. They were all there in Saudi Arabia, and they'd obviously taken a more pragmatic view than Jay Monahan did. And I thought it was probably a mistake, certainly in retrospect, for him to go down the moral route solely to the exclusion of the pragmatism and look at it as a business decision and nothing else. And I think that's kind of what you have to do. And I'm sure you went through the same kind of thing. I mean, there was a moral aspect to anybody, any golfer like yourself who decided to go to Saudi, but you had to kind of put that aside, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, to start with, the DP World Tour were the ones who brought golf to Saudi Arabia. So, I mean, we went to play the DP World Tour events for a couple of years first in Saudi, and if you're looking at, and I think it's kind of a, we all want the world to be a better place, right? And one thing I would say as a golfer, I mean, we played in many places around the world that might have different values or a different society than what we have in Northern Europe per se. And I don't ever feel like we left any of those golf tournaments leaving that place any worse off because we came there to play golf. So I mean, it's like, I think golf is a chance to, you know, to bridge some of those gaps, if anything, and it's entertainment, it's professional sport, and we played in China for donkey's years, and I mean, they're not topping Amnesty International list on good behavior either, I think. So it's like, where do you draw the line on all of this? But because, like I said, because it became a power struggle and everything that goes with that in the game itself, all of a sudden now you're going to single out one country and say that this is not good and you can't do this. And on the same line as you said, I mean, I got obviously a lot of criticism in Sweden as well, and I'm going like, okay, if the Swedish government is having a relationship with Saudi Arabia, if all the big companies are sending employees, it's the most important export markets for Swedish companies in the Middle East. Everyone can do business with them, but I can't play on a golf tour that's backed by their investment fund. It's like, to me, that becomes ridiculous. But that's just my logic, and clearly other people have different logics. But like overall, I think it's that's just been the moral kind of arguments that's just been used as a part of the fight for power. That's really how that goes down.
I mean, I just think that the eventual decision that everybody has to make or did make has to be a mixture of the two. I mean, to go down, if you make it purely a moral argument, well, you're not going to have anything to do with them. But as you say, there's always an argument to affect proper change. You've got to do it from the inside. And if you push them, away from you, nothing will ever change there if we isolate them. You know, you can make that argument too. So.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't approve of the death penalty, are you going to stop playing in states in America that have the death penalty? You're going down the abortion. I mean, it's like every place has its issues, right? And some of them you agree with, and some you don't. But like you say, you're never gonna. I don't think anything we do anywhere in golf is really having a negative impact in society and in the countries that we played for the last 30 or 40 years around the world. And you know, DP World is sponsored by DP World Tour is sponsored by Dubai Ports. I think they're doing 20 or 30% of their businesses with Saudi Arabia. So it's like, you know, where you gonna go with all this? But everyone entitled to their opinion, and that's how we go on.
A couple more things just to cover before we're done. I want you to sell the Live Tour to me a little bit. I've only been to one event, the very first one at the Centurion Club, which is a couple of years ago almost now. I haven't been back since. I haven't been assigned to go to a tournament, and I have to admit I don't follow it that closely. I'm not that interested. It needs to mean more for me. If I'm a typical golf fan, you've got a bit to go to sell it to me to make me, want to watch it every week or every time it's on. Are you disappointed to hear that, or is that a common thing you've heard, and where do you go to get somebody like me more engaged?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, in the beginning, I mean, we heard a lot of people who said that they're not interested and they've never been to an event. So, I mean, that's one thing I would argue. Well, at least you got to go and see the event. And if you can't say that you don't like something, that's like saying I don't like spinach if you never tried it. It's
or haggis.
That's kind of haggis. I have tried it. I didn't like it, that's kind of the starting point. If you have already a negative view on it, then okay, it's gonna be harder to convince someone, and especially if you're not willing to either put it on TV or go to the event. But I think you gotta look in the broader perspective, and I think one of the ideas behind Live was obviously to attract a younger audience. In this day and age, kids want something that's kind of quicker, They're a lot on social media. They're a lot on their phones. It's like they're not gonna sit in the stands and watch players come by for 8 hours at a championship. They get bored. Whether we think that's right or wrong, and that's not how we grew up, but that's just like the way it is, and it's more action packed. It's more of a bit more of a happening, I guess. You got the concerts. It's a shorter, condensed window of it's the lead up, the warm up. It's music. It's more of a party vibe, and then it's 4.5 hours of golf, and then it's over. So it's a shorter window. It doesn't take up as much time for the fan in terms of the day and the hours, and then it's normally rounded off with a concert afterwards. So it's a different kind of entertainment product. Whether you like that or not, that's obviously down to each and what to decide. And
I'll tell you what I do like, or the prospect of it I like, is the team aspect of it. I think if you had a month-long event in golf where everybody was playing, every top player was involved, in team competition, I would watch that. I would be into that. I mean, look at the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said earlier. The schedules and the way this all worked out could have been differently if you could have had that in the, say, September, October, November time around the world with the top with every top player. If it would have been structured differently from the beginning, but that wasn't to happen, and we sit where we have and where we are, and it's clearly a very strong lineup that Liv brings to every event that we go, and both in terms of up and coming players, current players, and some of us that are on the back end of our careers, but still very, very recognizable and have achieved a lot within the game, and people still want to watch. So it's still a very strong lineup, and I mean, again, is it for everybody? I can't guarantee it's for everybody, but you got to be open-minded enough to either come to an event or view it. And like you said, the team aspect is one thing that obviously is different from Liv or at Liv, and something I think will grow when people start talking about, it doesn't have any history. Well, neither did the FedEx Cup in 2007 when we played the first one. So it's like you got to have something going for a couple of years before it creates that thing. But I can understand that's a 75-year-old in a tweed jacket might not be the number one prospect for Liv. I fully understand that, but we got other golf tournaments as well, and there's enough golf for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah, well, I've got hopes for the team aspect. As I say, it's been made to work in cricket. I mean, the IPL came along with Indian funded, huge amounts of money for the top players to get involved, and the establishment made room for the IPL, so the top players can go off.
Eventually, though, right? I'm not a big cricket follower, but it was some turmoil there too in the beginning, right?
Well, I think they had to be threatened. There was a few threats flying around it before it actually happened. But the fact is that it has, and it works. There is room for something like that. And I think my hope is that golf can make room because, this old line about how we want to see the top players playing against each other, every week. Well, I'm not so sure I want that every week. And I'm not sure we've ever had that every week. But I certainly want to see it more often than we're getting right now, which is only the four majors,
Yeah, and even you could argue that in all of this, I'm not sure if the four majors did everything they could to kind of stay neutral and objective in that. And if I'm running a major championship, that would be my number one objective, was to be having the players that should be in that championship. And I think, I'm not saying it's been a huge skew-ity in that sense, but there's certainly been a few players left out here over the last couple of years that should have been in certain championships. So I think we can all agree on that, and hopefully going forward there will be pathways and decisions to make sure that doesn't happen going forward.
Yeah, when it seriously affects the majors, as you say, it started it here and there. There have been guys missing, but if it becomes to pass where there's a fairly large number of guys obviously should be in the field and are not, I think the majors will they'll gang up on the tours at that point and say, well, this is unacceptable. We need to do something about this. That maybe has to happen, and maybe that takes a wee bit of time. But anyway, my last question, Henrik, you'll be pleased to know, is Bryce. We're talking right after Bryson DeChambeau wins the US Open. There's two obvious questions from that. One is, how big of a boost is that for LIV golf, and is it that important for LIV players to win these things? And what next for Rory McIlroy? How do you think where his head is after what went on at the weekend there?
Yeah, I think it's of course it's because it's been so much kind of going on. Of course, it's going to be a huge boost for LIV as a whole, and for the players to have LIV players doing well in majors and winning majors as we've had both with Brooks and with Bryson here over the last two seasons, and all the stuff that not being competitive and so forth. It's if you're objective, you can obviously take out. I think it was a dozen players at US Open, 12 LIV players. I think it was that played, and right. I think eight made the cuts and one won, and where Sergio and Tyrrell and a few other guys ended up. I don't know exactly where they ended up, but I think if
just
you're looking
outside the top 10,
if you're looking at statistically, if you have 12 players out of 156 and back and forth, I mean, I think you can make sense from the numbers over these last couple of years in majors, and not saying that it's been bad performances by the guys, and they might not have been as well as you would have liked either in certain instances, but I think it's important, of course, for the LIV guys to do well in majors and kind of keep that argument that it's not a competitive tour that some have said. It's I think that's you see that's not true. In terms of Rory, we've all had some pretty losses that hit us pretty hard, and of course this one's gonna sting a while for him, and it's always a tough pill to swallow when you feel like you partly handed away a tournament on the last couple of holes to somebody else. That's always kind of sting, and I saw that he's taking some time to kind of recharge and regroup, and he's kind of probably take a month off near enough before he goes and plays Scottish and then the Open. So I can understand that, and that's part of being a professional athlete and being a world athlete, that you're going to be up there, and you're going to have good times and you're going to have bad times, and I guess it just hurts a little bit more given that it's been that long since he won his last major, and now he's had both the Open that he ended up losing out to Cam Smith at St Andrews, and then this one, and he's also had some other
US Open last year as well.
Yeah, exactly. So he's had some good opportunities, and it hasn't happened. But I'm sure he'll go back and regroup and come back and try again.
Have you been anything similar? Have you been in a similar spot? What's been the worst, throwing away moment, if you like, if you can put it that way, for you? I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. You haven't really been scarred too badly by anything, have you?
Yeah, good. I think the hardest loss for me was really in 2005. I think in Sweden, and I made an eagle on 17, and then 18 I had a bad second shot, ended up in a bunker, played a phenomenal bunker shot. I made up and down on the last, and everyone was congratulating me, and Mark Hensby had 2 holes to play, and I'm like, well, he can still make eagle on 17 because I did, and then he ended up making birdie, and then I'm sitting there in the scorer's hut, and he's got a 30-footer for birdie on the last, and I could hear the crowd before the television caught up.
Yeah.
And then I ended up losing on the second playoff hole, and I think that was probably one of the hardest losses for me. over the course
That's not
of
quite
my.
the same thing, though, is it? That's the actions
It wasn't.
of
It
somebody
wasn't
else.
like I was faltering big time. But I mean, yes, we're saying that he handed it away, and he missed a crucial putt on 16 on Sunday afternoon. Rory was, you would say, he was the one that played the best in the final round up until that point, and then he missed that short putt. So the one on 18 is a very tricky putt to make par, and we all missed easier putts than that one, but I guess it's the one that 16 that's going to be the one that kind of haunts him more than anything, and arguably a mistake on 15, hitting it over the green as well. That ended up in actually a good bogey for him. So it was, there were things that he would have liked to do differently, but it wasn't like he made triple the last two holes either. So it's all within the margins of what can happen, but you're going to be disappointed as a player that you let it slip like that.
Henrik, I sense that we've taken advantage of your jet lag long enough. I'm not sure what the day holds for you, but it's going to be a long one. You've been up early. I think it's Nashville you're in at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, I thank you for your time as always. I always enjoy the chats. That much is certainly true, and I look forward to seeing you again at Troon next month. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Likewise.